The Indianapolis Colts take on the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football in Jerry World. Can't get much bigger than that. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here by my co-host and fellow Horseshoe Huddle writer, Drake Wally. How's it going, man? Have you recovered from the loss Monday night? I know we talked about it Tuesday night and broke everything down, but how you doing, man? We're heading into week 13.
I just because we had an extra day to wait to do the podcast, it's an extra day that I have to lament. So I'm going to be over it by tomorrow morning probably. But hey, man, looking forward to Sunday. It's going to be a big game. It doesn't look like it's going to be a big game. It's going to be a big game.
It is. It really is a big game. It's always a big game when it's Sunday night football in prime time at AT&T Stadium down there in Dallas. I'm going to be there. My flight to Dallas leaves tomorrow bright and early at 6 a.m. Eastern time. So literally less than 12 hours from now, I'll be on a flight headed down to Dallas. But hey, we appreciate everybody coming on and breaking down the game with us. If you haven't already, please go follow the Horseshoe Huddle on all the things. Go ahead and like it on Facebook. Go ahead and follow Horseshoe Huddle at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. The subscriber numbers have been going up. So hey, if you know somebody that also is interested in the Colts, tell them to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we're going live. It's we're gonna have a lot to talk about here over the not only the next month, but the next coming months. It's gonna be a very exciting time as a Colts fan. Go ahead and follow Drake. He's been killing it on Twitter at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. Stats Matt, my guy. I'm repping the Hoosiers for you. Stats Matt is a Hoosiers guy, just like myself, just like Drake. He says, got to establish the run. Dallas is 24th in yards given up in the run game. Get a little ahead of us, Matt, but we're going to dive into that.
He's ready.
Don't you worry. He is absolutely ready. Drake, let's just dive into it here. Colts at Cowboys. Colts right now, 10.5-point favorites, according to FanDuel Sportsbook. Not looking good. Colts very big underdogs heading into this showdown. What are your general feelings as the Colts head down to take on the Cowboys?
I honestly think most of that money line comes from just kind of the pathetic nature that the Colts have had offensively, and how scary Dallas's pass defense is, and they've got Micah Parsons, and they've got DeMarcus Lawrence, and they've got some pretty scary guys that are on that front, and I can see why the plus 10.5. Money line or the plus 10.5 point differential is kind of there with Vegas, but right out of the gate, it looks pretty intimidating. Not going to lie.
Right. And then the Colts are actually a bigger underdog to the Cowboys than they were just a couple weeks ago to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I understand Colts were at home. That definitely gives a couple points for the home team, but still 10.5-point underdogs is a pretty big margin when it comes to the NFL. And I think you're right. I think a lot of it comes from the Colts' inability to score the ball on offense. And that's really been their Achilles heel all season long. If you watch this Colts team. And what the biggest part of it was the guy under center last week or on Monday night, Matt Ryan. We talked about ad nauseum how it looked like he was slow to react, looked like he definitely wasn't throwing to his receivers in a good spot, ball placement wise, was throwing behind him, making some poor decisions back there. I mean, and the things aren't going to get easier for Matt Ryan this week against the Cowboys, because currently the Cowboys are the number one ranked team against the pass this year in terms of yardage. They're also lead the league in sacks. The Dallas Cowboys have sacked opposing quarterbacks, I think, 45 times this year. Just not a good matchup. It's on paper, at least, for this Colts offense against this Dallas defense. What do you see? Do you think Matt Ryan's going to have a bounce back game? What do you expect out of number 2 on Sunday night?
I don't think he's going to have a bounce back game at all. I think that, if you play that badly against the 31st worst defense against the pass, how are you going to bounce back against the number one defense against the pass and the number one defense at pressuring and sacking the quarterback? Back to what Matt said. I said, no, they must run the football, and Jonathan Taylor needs a minimum of 30 touches. I'm talking catches, carries. He needs to be the absolute focal point. Get that man the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stats Matt says, I expect to see him, meaning Matt Ryan, laying on the turf a lot. And when you have a guy like Micah Parsons on that sideline, DeMarcus Lawrence on the opposite sideline, things are going to be rough. I really do. And they're going to try to put as much pressure on Matt Ryan as possible. I mean, everybody saw that game on Monday night where, I mean, Braden Smith, I thought, did a phenomenal job of containing TJ Watt, the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year. And Matt Ryan was starting to feel the pressure way before it needed to be felt. He was just holding on to the ball too long. And unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to really dissect the film this week because of some personal things that came up yesterday. But if you want a good film breakdown, go check out my guy Landon Oliver on Twitter, the Blue Stable. He did a really good job of breaking down Matt Ryan this week and some of the flaws and kind of him holding the ball too long, where some of the wide receivers were open. Matt Ryan just wasn't delivering the ball. And I don't know if that was just a one-off game, but if this becomes a trend where it seems like Matt Ryan starts seeing ghosts, as Sam Darnold would say, or he's just not throwing guys, not using anticipation to throw the ball, starting to feel the pressure before it gets there, just not playing up to NFL speed, this offense is just going to look even worse over the next month of the season. And Dallas is a very, very tough defense to start out against.
Well, yeah, and if they're every team at this point, and I actually mentioned it in one of my articles. I said every team knows that Taylor is going to be the guy, and that Matt Ryan cannot move in the pocket. Every single team, I guarantee you, the defensive coordinator goes through all of these things every time any defense plays the Colts, and they need to 100%. I'm gonna say it. They need to. I had it a little closer, but I figured I would just unfold it.
There you go.
Let's see, we got it right here. Let's see. We just need to
he's getting there. There we go.
We need to run the damn ball, just like Matt said, and they also need to feature Taylor in the pass. Again, I think Aikman was saying it, and he really made a lot of sense on Monday night. I can't believe Taylor didn't get the ball more in that game. He was actually, like you said, the line was pushing him back. He was getting yardage. He was fighting, and he was gaining yards, and I just expect to see him get the ball so much on Sunday.
Right. And that's kind of the second point I had in my notes here about this game. Is it a run the damn ball type game? Because the Dallas Cowboys are only 24th against the run. There's going to be opportunities there. Now, just because there are 24th against the run doesn't mean it's going to be a cakewalk. Nothing is easy for this Colts offense at this point. The Colts offense needs to actually make the holes so Jonathan Taylor can get through there and create some yardage, not getting hit in the backfield before he barely even has time to build up any speed. You could see Zach Moss. Zach Moss has been getting little carries here and there, but it's been mostly Jonathan Taylor. And then you talk about Jonathan Taylor in the passing game, Deion Jackson. I think Deion Jackson you could see having a bigger role in the passing game as well. I think making sure he's in there on those third downs, on those passing situations, and just letting Deion Jackson get out into space and letting him go to work. I think that's when he is at his best. But you're 100% correct there. I think this team, especially with how potent Dallas's offense is, the Colts really need to try to kind of take care and lead the way in time of possession, because you don't want to get into a track meet, let alone or for this Colts team anyway. They don't want to get into a track meet with anybody, but let alone the Dallas Cowboys, who I think are like around fifth, sixth, seventh, somewhere around there in points per game. So when you have an offense that can barely even score 16 points a game in the Colts, you want to dominate time of possession. You want to be able to run the ball successfully. Keep Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, all those guys, keep them over there on the sideline, not on the field, really pressuring your defense, who has been pressured enough. And so that way your defense isn't gassed by the fourth quarter.
Well, and that's another thing that I actually had for the offense was they need to run the ball not just so that Taylor can have opportunities to potentially move the ball and burn the clock, but it also helps Matt Ryan have opportunities to have some play action, maybe just for a second relieve that pass rush of Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys front that's terrorized quarterbacks. You got to get that run game going, got to get the play action going. And I did notice that, and it was a couple tweets I saw, and I kind of thought about it and looked in more into it. Parks Frazier needs to try to scheme the receivers open a little bit more, because I did notice that they seemed like they were running some pretty mundane routes. And we want the game plan to be simple, but you have to make it complex enough to beat an NFL defense. So there's a lot of things the offense is going to have to do, and it all starts with Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I would agree. And the thing is too, when you're also running the ball successfully, it kind of, I wouldn't say it halts the pass rush, but it certainly slows down the pass rush. And we know that that's going to be a big thing when you have an all-pro talent in Micah Parsons back there, when you have another guy in DeMarcus Lawrence who may not be the guy that he used to, but we've seen him wreck ball games in the past. So when you're trying to keep Matt Ryan upright and make it so he doesn't sense that pressure before it's there, running the ball successfully and kind of making those pass rushers kind of wait a second, or just a half, or even just a half a second on their get off to kind of see what's going to happen. You're right. It can lead to some play action. It can lead to some shots down the field. My goodness, please.
What the heck is that?
Test the defense down the field. I
don't even know what that is.
It's partially on Matt Ryan, partially on the offensive line, just like all the issues this Colts team and this Colts offense has had. But let's talk about the offensive line. Well, first, before we do that, Stats Matt does make a great point. He said Pittsburgh was 6th against the run, and the Colts opened lanes for Jonathan Taylor against them, so they should be able to against Dallas. That's what the hope is, especially on Indianapolis' side. But then we get back to kind of what we were talking about as far as protection is going to be key. This offensive line, in my opinion, the offensive line didn't play horrible against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought that that Ryan on most times, most throws, most plays was given time to throw. There were open receivers downfield. Matt Ryan was just missing them. Now on that final drive, it seemed like Bernard Raymond was kind of getting ran over by Alex Highsmith, gave up the sack, gave up the pressure on the fourth down. So that definitely they weren't perfect by any means, and things do need to be cleaned up. But do you think this offensive line is going to be able to build off of, at least it wasn't a disastrous performance against the Steelers? Do you think they could kind of build off of that against one of the most fierce and most productive pass rushing units in the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I mean, if there's two things that will really help any Colts fan feel like those edges can get contained, it's that Bernard Raymond was the top-rated lineman against the Steelers, and that Braden Smith is the top-rated lineman this season for the Colts. Mm-hmm. And you've got the left and you've got the right. It's going to be on the guards and the center they're going to need to run that ball right down the throat of the Cowboys. If you go to the outside, you've got some real serious issues you could deal with. But I think it's going to be arguably one of the most difficult tests for either one of those guys. I think that Smith will probably I would say that they're going to take Parsons and put him on Raymond for sure, but they're both just going to be dealing with a lot all game. So we'll see.
Right. Stats Matt again says Raymond said he blocked to the wrong scheme on one of those plays. And I think he even said he ran the wrong play on the sack of Alex Highsmith. So yeah, that's going to be key, because Micah Parsons primarily rushes on that right side of the defense up against the left tackle.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be like TJ Watt was going up against Braden Smith all game, and Braden Smith definitely held his own and was able to contain TJ Watt for the majority of the game.
Yeah.
It's going to be Micah Parsons against Bernard Raymond, who is still learning and who is still trying to get his feet wet. This guy, and listen, this guy may very well be the left tackle of the future for the Colts, but he was never meant to play this early in his career. This was supposed to be a redshirt year for Bernard Raymond. The Colts wanted him to be able to sit back behind Matt Pryor learn the position for a year, and then kind of use next year in 2023 as his quote unquote rookie season where he's getting that playing time. Because before he was drafted, he only played left tackle for 2 seasons at Central Michigan. He was a tight end before that. This kid is still incredibly raw in terms of learning the ins and outs of the left tackle position. And because of the circumstances that the Colts are in, Matt Pryor just being terrible at his job there at left tackle, Bernard Raymond has been thrust into this role, and when he's not really quite ready for it yet. So yeah, absolutely, it's going to be a very big test for Bernard Raymond and this entire offensive line on Sunday nights. But let's kind of move things along to the defensive side, where it's going to be strength on strength. Yep. Because the Dallas Cowboys offense is very potent. The Colts defense has done a hell of a job this year. It has really kept the Colts in these games and kept things close when probably it shouldn't have been. And I think it starts all with number 4 there on that side for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott. He was injured earlier this year. The Cowboys were able to stay afloat with Cooper Rush back there, but since Dak has come back, the Dallas Cowboys offense has really taken off. How do you think the Colts are going to be able to pressure Dak? How do you see them being able to contain Dak Prescott, just making things hard on the Cowboys quarterback?
Well, you have Kwity Paye back. And I do know that, just the trend when someone's out for that long, probably a pitch count, you don't want to hurt the guy. But you have Ngakoue and Paye and Stewart and Buckner. It's time to start playing like those last names. It's time to start. This is the game to do it. And I think that it could be a big evening of 5+ sacks if they can stop that ground attack, which is what kept the Cowboys afloat when Cooper Rush was the quarterback. If they can stop that duo of Pollard and Zeke, you're going to force Dak to have to throw. That gives Paye and Ngakoue both ample opportunity to shed some blocks and get to that quarterback.
Yeah, you made a good point that while Kwity Paye has practiced in full both days this week, and it looks like he is on track to play, he very well could be on a pitch count. That hasn't been said by Jeff Saturday, Gus Bradley, but trying to make sure he doesn't overwork that ankle and has another setback. You could see Paye and Dio Dangbo splitting the reps more than usual. And if that happens, you still need to have that pass rushing presence, because you don't want to allow Dak Prescott to sit back there and just scan the field and wait for guys like CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, big time weapons get
very
open.
Underrated tight end.
Absolutely. You don't want to just let those guys just have all day and get open. And Dak Prescott too, I mean, while he's not the most mobile guy, he can still make some plays with his legs. And look at stats, Matt. This is why you have your name, brother. Cowboys allow pressure 21.5% of the time. That's almost every 4 passes that Dak drops back to throw, he's facing pressure. And you said it, Drake. Ngakoue, Buckner, Paye, those are the 3 guys that really need to capitalize on those opportunities and muddy the waters for Dak, so he just can't sit back there and throw for 350 and 4 tuds.
Well, and I go back to the biggest key is going to be containing Zeke and Pollard, because we've all talked about Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. We've all talked about when the Colts did have Hines and Taylor, and this and that. I don't know if you can find at this point in the season a better duo at running back than, Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard. You got one guy who is the standard, one guy who's probably the future of the Dallas Cowboys. So if they can keep those guys from having big games, force Dak to do it all by himself, it's a lot harder than leaning on your run game.
Oh yeah, and Dallas is 7th in the league in rushing offense. That's really, they've been using the run to set up the pass, to take that pressure off of Dak Prescott, to really, so that way he can have that time to throw and get the ball down the field. Their strategy all year is what the Colts need to do in this game as far as on offense. Really use that running game so that way it opens up the pass. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for this Colts defense, as far as making sure the Cowboys don't use the running game to just I mean, the Colts can get him into like 3rd and 7 situations, and then Dak ends up dumping the ball off to Tony Pollard for a gain of 8, something to that regard. Stats Bass said linebackers are going to have to cover because Pollard is a weapon out of the backfield and Schultz is a security blanket.
Yep.
Absolutely right. But
Yep.
Tony Pollard, I mean, any other team, and he's the bona fide starter. But because the Cowboys have Zeke Elliott back there, and because they're paying him so much money,
it's the second reason.
That's a huge part of why Ezekiel Elliott is still the starter there at running back for the Dallas Cowboys. But if the Colts can really contain that and make sure that they don't just ride this running game like the Steelers did last week, where they rode Najee Harris and Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland Jr., that's definitely going to help. And it's going to make sure that Cowboys offense stays over there on that sideline.
Well, and going back to kind of what we were saying about Matt Ryan, and this is going for any quarterback, if you can set up play action, and you have burners like Gallup, and you have burners like, even Noah Brown. Noah Brown is a big physical receiver, and you got CeeDee Lamb. You can really destroy a defense, and that is exactly what they've done. They're a great play action team. So, if you can remove that element and force them to straight up, try to throw the ball. I mean, it's a lot different than just, again, leaning on your run game and faking the run into a pass play.
Right. And then that's the thing too, is the Cowboys just have a lot of different weapons. I didn't even mention Brown, but you did. I already mentioned CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz. Both Zeke and Tony Pollard can be used out of the backfield. Dak has a multitude of weapons that he can go to get the ball and can really attack you at different angles. So it's going to put a lot of pressure once again on this Colts defense. And besides last week against Pittsburgh, which I think, and the Colts defense players admitted this was not their best week. They definitely did not play up to their standard. I think if we get a normal game out of this Colts defense, I think they can probably hinder things a little bit. But again, it's still going to be all in this offense to be able to produce and be able to take advantage of the opportunities that this defense can give them. So it's going to be one hell of a matchup. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure. It's a big game, really, because when you think about it, the Cowboys are trying to stay with the Eagles and try to stay in the hunt for the NFC East, possibly the number 1 seed. The Colts are just trying to hold on for dear life to stay mathematically involved and make it so they're not mathematically eliminated. Those were the words I was looking for from the playoff picture. So we'll have to see. But let's dive into the injuries. We talked. So here's where the injury report came out today for the Colts. And here's the guys that have not practiced at all this week. Kenny Moore II, with an ankle injury, a shin injury that he suffered in the fourth quarter against the Steelers. Jelani Woods hasn't practiced all week with shoulder and quad issues. That shoulder has been bothering him for a little while. Braden Smith was out today with an illness, but hopefully that doesn't linger, because if it does and Dennis Kelly's in there at right tackle, Dennis Kelly's fine, but the Colts are going to really struggle if they don't have Braden Smith out there.
Very fair. Yeah. So,
and then, here are the guys that were either limited yesterday, did not practice yesterday, that were full today. Kiki QT, he was an illness. He was back today. Ben Banigou was full. Ryan Kelly, who's been dealing with a knee issue all year, was full. Kylan Granson has been full all week back from his illness. And we talked about Kwity Paye as well. Isaiah Rodgers, the last one, was a limited participant today with a knee injury, but I think the big ones there are you're getting Kylan Granson back, who was out last week, and you're getting Kwity Paye back. And we even talked about it last week too, man. This defense is just different when Kwity Paye is out there, and this Colts defense desperately misses Kwity Paye rushing from that end spot. They really do.
Well, and you think about it, I mean, there's no other left-handed quarterback other than Tua Tagovailoa, and so when you rush from that right side and it's that front side, you can't scramble to your strong side. So you're forcing a lot of quarterbacks to have to either stop or to have to literally turn tail and run the other way or take a sack. And so when you have nasty pressure like that from Kwity Paye's side, I mean, it could force any quarterback, top tier, low tier, to really struggle, because again, most of them are right-handed anyway. So it's coming from that side.
Right, exactly. And stats, Matt says Rogers getting hurt in practice today scares me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does a little bit because
Yeah.
usually when you see someone going down in the middle of in practice where they had no injury designation the day before and being limited, usually that means it happened in practice. So I haven't heard anything yet from anybody that I've talked to that it's serious. Obviously, something could come out later this evening or tomorrow, but we hope Isaiah Rogers Sr. is okay as we go into the weekend here. So, um, but yeah, let's spice things up a little bit, Drake. Let's move on to the bold predictions and our keys to victory here. So,
Okay.
what's your bold prediction? Give me, if you only have one, give it. What's all your bold predictions this week? Whether it's one, a couple, go ahead, shoot them out there.
So I got one for each team, or a couple.
Okay,
Well, one for the Colts and a couple for the Cowboys. So for the Colts, my bold prediction is Jonathan Taylor has 25 plus. In fact, I'll even dare say 30 plus touches
okay.
and 150 plus all-purpose yards. Now these are bold predictions. But then for the Cowboys, Tony Pollard has a minimum of 5 catches, 50 receiving yards, and Dak throws for over 300 yards because he will have to throw all game.
Okay, I like those. I especially like the Jonathan Taylor one because I think if this offensive line could get going and if Jonathan Taylor can have that type of game, I think that the Colts are in this one. I really do. I think
Yeah.
it's a close one if they can get Jonathan Taylor going and really ride the running game. For my bold predictions, I'm gonna go on the others. I'm gonna go on the defensive side. I do think that while it doesn't look like Kenny Moore's going to be out there, it very well could be that Isaiah Rogers isn't out there. So the Colts could be thin at cornerback. So I'm going to talk about Gilly Lock. I think Gilly Lock gets an interception this weekend. I think that's my big one on defense. And actually, well, part of my big one, I should say. I'm going to go with Gilly Lock getting one interception, but I'm going to go with Julian Blackman, a guy that's been playing more. I think he gets an interception this weekend. So I'm going to go 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions by the Colts defense. I think if they can get some pressure on Dak, force him into some mistakes, Dak could turn the ball over. And you could see Stephon Gilmore jumping on a route. You could see Julian Blackman coming out from that deep safety spot and cutting up a deep ball that's going across the middle to a Noah Brown or a Michael Gallup. You could really see that. So, yeah, I'm going to go 2 interceptions for the Colts this week. One by Stephon Gilmore,
Okay.
one by Julian Blackman.
I love it. Yeah, and I also there's one more I'll throw in there, and that is 2 sacks again from Yannick Ngakoue.
Oh, okay. You're gonna get all unique to 10.5 by the time this game's over.
Let's hope.
We'd love to see it. Love to
Let's
see it
hope.
because the Colts did not have a double-digit sack guy last year. So it'd be nice to have one of those guys back in that category. But let's take a look here at what's the keys to victory. What do the Colts need to do in order to really pull off the big upset there in Dallas?
Well, we'll go, on offense, we'll go right back to it. You got to get the run game going, but I will say, let's go in a different direction. You got to get the run game going. And when they do use the play action, take a shot downfield,
Yes.
just take a shot downfield. You've got monsters on the outsides. Take a shot downfield. And then for the defense, they will need to pass rush, and they will need to stop the run. Try to force Dak to throw the ball at least 40 times. I know that's a lot, but he's done it before, and usually he gives you an interception or 2.
Right. Right. And that's the thing. If you can force Dak to have to put the team on his shoulders, that's usually when he makes his mistakes. Dak plays exceptionally well when the offense is playing complementary football. But when it's all on Dak, I'm not saying he hasn't done it before, because he certainly has. But typically he can make some mistakes like that. So I really agree. I think for me, my number one is control the time of possession. If the Colts control the time of possession, keep this defense fresh into the fourth quarter, are able to run the ball, get some long sustained drives. I think that can help just keeping that offense over there on the sidelines. And then another thing is don't kill yourself. Don't lose the game for yourself. The Colts,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been too many times to count this year where the Colts have had the ball in scoring territory in either they get a sack and they can only come away with 3. They fumble the ball at the 1 yard line that happened last week, when you have those opportunities to get 7 on the board, get 7 on the board. Don't just make it threes and threes and threes, because that's how you end up scoring 16 points. Turn those threes into 7, and then you can put up 24, 31 points a game and actually give your defense something to play with and take some of the pressure off of that unit. I think the Colts are capable of doing it. It's just so many times this season they've found ways to lose games rather than found ways to win those games. And ultimately, that's the difference between the good teams and the bad teams in the NFL. You either find ways to win and then you're going to the playoffs, or you find ways to lose those games and you're sitting at home in January. It's really as simple as that.
Well, and another, to play off of that point, two things. One was one of the things I was thankful for in our, what are we thankful for the Colts article. I chose Chase McLaughlin. I think that he has stepped the hell up. That guy has played very well. He's still right now scored a third of the team's points throughout the entire season, and he's only played like 9 of the 12 total games. But one of the keys is keep Ryan upright. You got to keep Matt Ryan upright. He is clearly shell-shocked. He's clearly uncomfortable. And now he's going somewhere that's not the Colts. It's not Lucas Oil. And there's probably not going to be a lot of, I'm not saying that Colts fans don't travel, but I mean, Dallas is, Cowboys fans figure out a way to pack that stadium with as many Cowboys fans as possible. So you also have to keep Matt Ryan upright, and things will probably go a lot better for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, Drake, I'm going to ask the big question. What's your prediction? What's your prediction for Sunday night? As I'm sitting there in AT&T Stadium, when I look up at the scoreboard at the end of the fourth quarter, what am I going to see?
So I actually went into depth on this one, and this is going back to my so far terrible predictions that I've made. But Colts 24, Cowboys 30. And I do think that the Colts will be far tougher than anyone predicted, and they will have the lead until the final quarter when Dallas's defense wears down the Colts receiving core.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit less on the Colts offense. Again, they got to prove to me. They got to prove to me that they can score over 20 points. Yeah. They've only scored 20 or more 3 times this year. One of those was against the Texans. They had 20. Other one was against Kansas City. They had 20. Against Jacksonville at home, they finally had 34. I need to see it. I think that the Colts, again, can keep this close through 3 quarters. They might even take a little bit of a lead. But I just think that until they can prove me wrong, it's going to be something like where the defense is relied upon for most of the game, and then they kind of gas out the fourth quarter. The Colts aren't going to be able to score enough to hang with the Cowboys. So I'm going to go Cowboys 27, Colts 17. I think the Colts do barely cover, but it's going to be a very tough challenge for them to stay with the Cowboys, keep pace with the Cowboys. As Stats Matt says, 27-17 Cowboys. No. Hey, we're on the same wavelength, brother. But I mean, I think the Cowboys offense is going to be too potent, and I don't think that the offense of the Colts is going to be able to score more than 20. So if the Cowboys can get to 20, that's probably going to be a wrap. So, but hey, let us know if other people have predictions. Let us know in the comments. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think the Colts are going to do on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys? But it's certainly whatever's happens, it's going to be an interesting night. I can't wait to be there to experience it all. Knock another stadium off the list for me. But hey, everyone, we really appreciate you being here this evening. Stats Matt was really the only one in the chat tonight. But hey, as was right. on a Colts podcast, the man is basically the third host of this show. Let's be honest. But we do appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, if you haven't done it already, please go support us and follow us. All the Horseshoe Huddle channels. It really does mean a lot and helps out with everything. Facebook, it's Horseshoe Huddle. Twitter, it's at Colts on FN. YouTube, it's Horseshoe Huddle. Subscribe, hit that bell. Go follow Drake at DWalster Drake so you can see all of his content. If you want to see my content, it's at Andrew Moore NFL. We really, really do appreciate all of you guys being here. And even though I am traveling back from Dallas, we will be back Monday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, to dissect what all happened in Jerry World. So until then, we'll see you guys then.
See you guys.